Welcome to the Financial Freedom Secrets Show. This is your host, Jackson Milan, the Wealth Mentor, helping business owners create financial freedom faster by mastering the language of money. Want to see how well you're tracking towards financial freedom? Complete our 40-point financial performance scorecard at wealthhealthcheck.com.au. That's wealthhealthcheck.com.au. The average score for most business owners is 18 out of 40. So complete the scorecard now and see how well you're tracking towards financial freedom. G'day guys, this is Jackson Milan, the Wealth Mentor, and we're here for another episode of the Financial Freedom Secrets Show. And I'm very excited about this particular episode because I wanted to talk about resilience, the idea of bouncing back, rising to your fullest potential, and getting out of your own way when it comes to growing and scaling your business. And I have Michael Licenblat here today to talk about all things resilience, how to be high performing in all aspects of your business, how to focus on the things that are really going to move the needle forwards, and really kind of unpacking some of the reasons why we become our own worst enemy when it comes to growing and scaling a successful and profitable business. So, Michael, thanks for joining us, mate. How you doing?
Oh, doing well and looking forward to this interview.
Right, looking forward to having a chat. We were just having a little bit of a conversation offline about some of the things we've got in common around martial arts and the role that plays in business. But before we get too far into it, mate, let's talk a little bit about your origin story. Who are you? What do you do? And how did you fall into doing the work that you do right now?
So look, I've always had a passion for looking at what the human spirit is capable of. How far can you push yourself? What makes one person step up when others step off? That's always been a curiosity. So throughout my life, I've tried different sporting events that pushed and challenged me. We've spoken about martial arts. What that really does challenge to stretch you physically and mentally. And so I started my work actually in psychology, doing my psychology degree, was just fascinated about the way the mind works. And I found myself actually from there getting into natural therapies in terms of how does pressure affect the body, and what does the translation between what I think up here and what I feel in here, and how those two actually work as a team. So I spent 7 years in my own natural therapies business, worked with about 4,000 people over that time, and got to see firsthand that translation of pressure and what it does to the body. From there, and I said, we've in talking martial arts, I've been doing martial arts for about 30 years or thereabouts. And I just love the way that martial arts is very much about the way in which you respond to pressure and whether it beats you or you work with it. And so I've taken a lot of the principles from psychology, from natural therapies and martial arts, and I sort of meld them together in how we create high performance in tough situations. Because in essence, the work that I do is I build resilient teams that bounce back in times of setbacks and challenges, high pressure environments, and are able to thrive when things get tough. And it's not about motivating yourself and kind of chest beating and talking to yourself, I can do it. It's actually looking at the natural way that the body works under pressure and how to tap into those aspects that allow us to step up, to lean in and switch on when the world's against us.
Makes so much sense, mate. And look, I pulled so many lessons from my martial arts experience over the course of my life. And there's so much of my resilience that I can attribute to learning those skills of how I respond under pressure. And it's interesting, mate. I feel that there are people that either sink or swim when it comes to being put into these high pressure situations. Have you felt that that's got worse or changed, particularly since COVID? Because I think people have been under so much pressure, a lot of stress, very much kind of had this crossroads moment, it seems. What have you observed since COVID in terms of people's resilience and response to pressure?
Yeah, so there are two types of pressures. Pre-COVID, it was your standard stuff. I've got too much to do and not enough time. I've got endless meetings, calls, and and emails to get to. I've got higher expectations and capacity. So there's all of that kind of pressure. When we hit COVID, we had another layer of pressure that sat on top of all of that, and that was to do with uncertainty. I don't know how this will play out. I don't have the same ability to predict, and that made me feel anxious or frustrated. There was also a level of insecurity that what I used to do that created success and got outcomes wasn't working right now, and I started to doubt my own ability. Can I solve this? Can I drive this? Can I be profitable? And then we also had a big one that was uncertainty and powerlessness. I mentioned uncertainty, but more powerlessness, a feeling that I don't have control. And this we found particularly in Victoria, where there was lockdowns for 3, 6, 9 months over a period of time, and we didn't have the choices that we had. And I felt, well, I'm not in control of my business, how I operate, my ability to generate an income, etc. And when you stack those ones together, that feeling of insecurity and uncertainty and powerlessness together, it creates a heightened feeling of pressure that we are, number one, unfamiliar with, and secondly, puts extra strain on our competence. And so what was happening is that people were starting to fall over pebbles more. That those kind of setbacks and challenges, it meant that more people were feeling overwhelmed and overloaded. There were high reports of anxiety and high reports of depression and those aspects, which was understandable. But part of the reason is that we felt that we couldn't find solutions for our problems. Ultimately, when control is taken away and I feel I can't be the driver of my destiny, then my ability to apply my skills gets underutilized. And so we saw a lot more of that. That rise of those unfamiliar pressures stacked up one above the other started to create a less ability to apply skills and lean in.
Makes so much sense, mate. And look, even a number of years on, we are still seeing the repercussions of that control being taken away, because obviously now we're dealing with the economic flow-on effects that have kind of come from COVID and all of the things that have happened there. Obviously, people are dealing with the first period of kind of high inflation, high interest rates, low consumer sentiment, kind of the lack of free-flowing capital in markets for the first time in many people's business lives. I know certainly for myself. And it's interesting to see that the sentiment that I see in the market is that business owners are like, well, I can't trust myself anymore. I know what needs to be done, but I can't necessarily muster up the whatever it might be, the determination, the perseverance, the energy, the effort to push through and do the work. Is that what you're seeing in terms of the people that you're working with, Michael?
So the reason why we're seeing that is for many people, pardon me, for many people, they haven't seen those types of tough times before. And this may be more of a younger or newer generation that have come through in business, and they've come through and they're smart, motivated, etc., and they're creating results. And then they're hit by a wave that they didn't see coming and don't know what to do with it. So they're unfamiliar with what setback after setback after setback feels like when you can't get back up and just ride again. And what that does is that, again, it underlines, or it kind of undercuts their ability to be able to manage better. But because they're unfamiliar with it, failure starts to hurt, and they will personalize that failure. Oh, maybe I just don't have it in me. Maybe I'm just not cut out of this. The imposter syndrome will come out. Maybe I just realized that, I've been riding a good wave and, I better do something else now. No, maybe you're just not familiar with failure. Maybe we just got to get out there and go, failure, okay. Tough times, okay. It's what you do with that challenge. Typically, we have 3 different levels of how people automatically respond. And this is not something we might choose to do. This is something which is embedded sometimes based on our upbringing, our education, etc. Sometimes our resilience is low because our conditioned response to pressure is one of victimhood. Oh, why is this happening to me? I can't believe this is doing it again. It's so unfair. When we look at the world that it's happening to us, not that we have choice, but it's happening to us, and we start to blame. So when people, if you notice in your language, I start to blame, or I give reasons as to why not, or I feel helpless, or it's too much. What I've done is I've allowed pressure to let me settle in being a victim in this. People might say, Michael, you don't understand. I've dealt with this, I've dealt with that. And it's hard. I get it. But when you have responded in a way that is a victim, all you see is what's not possible. You feel like a tidal wave is coming in. So to your point there, Jackson, is why we're seeing more people overloaded. They're not familiar with constant uncertainty and high pressure, and they may have fallen back into a conditioning or a mindset that is victimhood and blame. And ideally, we want them to recognize that and understand that if you take control of things, you can influence the way in which you think and respond, you can lift that response. It's not that you're not resilient, it's that your habit of doing things isn't familiar with these kinds of pressures. And what you need to do is lift that resilience to a higher level of competency. And for some people, that's actually their trap, is that they are resilient. They go, but I can cope. And absolutely they can. And we actually see a lot of that, of coping and managing. That's good. But what coping and managing means, it's kind of like saying, I can hold my breath for a long period of time, which is different to going, I can take an oxygen tank and breathe underwater. And we want people to go, it's not about how many hits that you can take and get through. It's about your ability to turn pressure into something useful. So if your ability to get through is just based on how tough you are, and I believe I get that. You know, I'm from that generation, a bit alpha male and European background, and we get tough. We get the idea that, you know, you can throw what you like at us and we'll still be here. But if the only tool we have is cope and get through, then we have a ceiling of how much we can achieve and what high performance looks like. And for those that want to take resilience and actually use it as a tool for business growth, they themselves need to redefine what it is and almost be counterintuitive. Now, this comes back to our martial arts discussion, to do something which doesn't come naturally, rather than just toughen up, but go, how do I flow with this? How do I grow from this? How do I transform this setback, this failure, this problem into something that fuels me and gets me better? So it's those types of thinking, Jackson, that a business owner needs to be cognizant of, take ownership for, and then start to make choices about.
It makes so much sense. And as you were talking, I was immediately went back to kind of starting in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu as a white belt. Somebody's got you in mount. They might have a bit of their belly over your face. You're struggling to breathe. And you have this kind of moment of panic and you're like, I'm going to die. And you're like, no, you're not going to die. You can just take it easy, calm down. What have you got to do to get yourself out of this situation? And then it's about equipping yourself with the tools to be able to respond appropriately and obviously get yourself out of the situation. But it's about overcoming that immediate panic, which is,
Yes.
I guess, the first skill to learn. And look, I guess the interesting thing here is these principles are super valuable. I think these are kind of principles that high performance people use throughout all periods of time. And you can see the difference between those high performers and those who are obviously getting average or below average results. But when the stakes are getting higher, like there's a lot of sentiment there at the moment, is that business is getting tougher. It's harder to get sales, it's harder to get attention, harder to get clients, harder to keep them. So in the context of selling in this environment, what are some of the kind of practical tools that business owners or their sales teams could be implementing to succeed in these tough times?
All right. So this speaks to me because a core part of my work is in sales resilience, selling more in tough and competitive markets, getting past the rejections, the setback, and the apprehension. The first thing that comes to my head is get hungry. Make the decision that I'm going to get out there and grow and do and achieve, not wait for it to happen better for me. Get out there and fight and sing for your supper. Get out there and grind, do the work that needs to be done. And you need to, and I'll jump to the next point. Now, I'm just going to say you need to get past the excuses. I want to jump to that in a second. But we've got to first have that fire in the belly. Jackson, you can't teach hunger. You either have hunger or you don't. And if you don't, you can't be motivated. You have to draw it out of yourself by something that you want that is bigger than you. In other words, what's going to be a cause or an outcome that gets you out of bed in the morning? And we think about this with training. You know, with jiu-jitsu, when you're doing round after round, roll after roll, and you're struggling to breathe and you're struggling to keep your arms up. And then the instructor goes, all right, wait, we've got 2 more to go. And your mind goes, no, mate, I'm done. In that moment, how do you help your mind go, not I'm done, but all right, let's see what else we've got? Because what happens, I know in my martial arts grading, is they would hammer you. They would push you to the point where you are spent. You've got nothing left. And then they want to see what you've got, because they understand that the black belt, technique we can teach anyone. Heart has to come from you. It says everyone has the black belt in them. We just need to see if you've got it in you. And by pushing you to the point and seeing what you've got when you've got nothing left. That's the essence of black belt. And so we look at this in sales, you go, are you hungry? Are you going to keep pushing when it's hard? Do you want something that's bigger than you? And that's where it starts about with the sales and business development. And that leads me to that other thing I wanted to say is you've got to get past yourself. When things are tough, your mind will kick in and it wants to keep you safe. We are designed by nature for self-preservation, which makes sense. You know, if we sense something's going to hurt us or damage us, we protect ourselves. If someone's going to throw something, my natural response with my hands is to put them up like this or like this. It protects the soft tissue targets in my body, just instinctively. The brain does the same thing, but with emotional strain. So if I feel I'm going to be embarrassed or look stupid or be incompetent, my brain has the same protective mechanism, but it has it in the form of excuses. Oh, I won't call now, I'm not ready. Oh, I won't call now, it's not the right time of day. Don't do that because you might muck it up. And what my brain is doing, it's doing its job, it's keeping me safe. And this is the conversation about being counterintuitive, to go, I need to rewire my brain or my awareness to go, my brain's doing its job and I need to take the action anyway, to tell the brain, it's okay, there's no physical threat here, it's more emotional. I won't get hurt. I'll make the call. I'll take the initiative. I'll choose the risk. I'll get out and do. And so that's the aspect there of the resistance. Get past yourself by getting past the body's innate and natural job to keep you safe, recognizing this is not a safe thing. This is just a comfort zone. And when you sit in your comfort zone for too long, your comfort zone becomes your prison. And in business, you just don't grow beyond a certain glass ceiling or a certain level of incompetence.
100%, mate. You've hit the nail on the head. And as you're talking through it, I'm kind of unpacking my own subconscious process, because for a very long time I was a serial procrastinator, which for anybody who's known me for any length of time, that blows their minds to even imagine me being that kind of person. And it was that thing, it was that subconscious prison that I found myself in. And I started consciously developing the habit with really small things. If I had that little kind of friction point, that resistance that said, don't worry, don't do it tomorrow, no one's going to know, it's okay, I just got into the habit of pushing on in spite of that friction point.
Yeah.
And over time, I just created this kind of this muscle memory where essentially whenever I come up to any form of resistance, I would just naturally kind of push through it. And it's only there for it's like a craving. It's there for like 15, 20 seconds. And it's once you push through it, then you realize there's no resistance on the other side of that. And you go, oh, that actually wasn't that hard. And yeah. I see so many entrepreneurs really struggle with this, that they struggle with this deep procrastination. They're stuck in this kind of 80-20. They're doing 20% of the result that gets 80% of the outcome. And they know that, but still they can't seem to push through it. So are there any kind of ninja hacks, things that business owners can work towards to help them get through that friction point and do more of the needle moving stuff in their business?
So you've just described my father, incredible entrepreneur, big thinker, but just overthinks, too big picture. And actually for his birthday this year, I bought him the Eat the Frog book, which is that book about just do the most difficult thing first. And if you've done the most difficult thing, everything after that is sort of easy. The hack here is exactly what you've said, is you've got to do the stuff that you are most resistant, but do it a little bit. See, the concept here about building resilience isn't about, oh, how much can I tolerate, but rather how far out of my comfort zone am I able to push myself where I'm not good, where I'm not comfortable, where I'm not familiar. And how frequently can I do that to stretch my capacity of what's possible? And so the way we do that, we go, all right, what am I avoiding today? What's the one thing that I really don't want to do? What's the one call, the one meeting, the one item that I don't really want to do? Great. Can we start with that? Can we start with the tough stuff first, then go something easy, rewarding, then something tough and something easy? So we want to be able to constantly be familiar with doing things that are uncomfortable. One of my business coaches, Pete Cook, would talk about you want to expect that 50% of your projects or your initiatives or your new ideas are going to fail. So that's not being pessimistic. That's just allowing you to launch and allowing things to fail and then moving on, going that if we don't take initiative to try, if we are not familiar with failure, then all we do is we play safe. We don't really launch, we don't really try, we don't really call. We're busy playing safe. And so whilst we don't fail, we don't either achieve either. And so we've got to be able to stretch that whole concept of failing fast. Who was it? There was a name, Jean Joao, I think, and I've pronounced it incorrectly. He did a TED talk about, I think, 100 days of failure. Look, those watching, look it up. I think it's 100 days of failure. He, a Chinese-born young man who came from a very conservative family, and that's relevant because he says openly, he says, "I know we don't take risks. We just do, within the comfort zone. What's very conservative." And he came out when he was in, I think, America, Australia. He said he came out and wanted to start to do more. He wanted to achieve more, but he was scared of failure. So he deliberately, for 100 days in a row, did stuff that he was going to fail at, just to get familiar with what it meant to fail. So he would go, say, to Starbucks and ask for a refill. Ask, can I have another burger for free? Can I go to knock on someone's house? Can I just, can I walk your dog? Is it okay if I use the back garden and just sunbake? Just stupid stuff. But two things happened. Number one, it surprised him on how many people actually said yes to the stupid stuff. And secondly, by sort of day 20, he was sort of looking forward to go, I wonder what I can fail at today. I wonder what I can do that I can try. And that whole apprehension. And what we do when we have that fear, we build a narrative around it. Oh, I'm not good at this. This is not for me. He said that whole narrative started to dissipate. So one of the programs that I run is from practitioner to partner. And this is for people in accounting, law firms to become more valuable. And they have to do that. They've got to be able to bring clients in. They can't just be good practitioners and technicians. They've got to bring clients in. And because of that, we have to change their narrative. Oh, I'm not into business development and sales. Let's just smash that narrative by going out and doing. Less talk, more do. On that point, there's a lady who I bumped into who her name is Kathy Chow, I think it's C-H-A-U. She also Asian background, again, relevant because, again, not from a overt, overly confident background, conservative. As part of her business development, she went out and did 100 lunches, 100 meetings back to back, just to get out there and and she's got this wonderful business around presentation skills and different aspects because she got out there and stretched. Guys, what you need to do is go, what am I avoiding? Great, let's go and do that. And just listen to the resistance. Oh, I can't because of this. And go, yeah, I hear you, and do it anyway. It's not new advice. It's something but you have to do.
And that's where growth is, right? That's where growth lives. I think Warren Buffett famously said, we pay a big price for certainty. And I think it's the biggest price of all. But I know that even though we're talking about this and it's pragmatic, and I'm sure everyone's heard this many times, there is still somebody that's listening to this or watching this that says, I am not capable of that. So in your experience, mate, from all of the people that you've worked with over the years, have you truly encountered anybody who is incapable of implementing these things we've spoken about today?
The only incapable ones are people who are more married to their narrative than they are married to their possibility. And that's not a criticism. It's just someone who is so familiar with why they can't do it, why not now, or not their age, or not their skill set, or not their height, or not their gender, whatever it is the reason why. If they are too attached to that, oh, because in the past I've done this and I can't do this, I'm too afraid. Yes. If they are too attached to that narrative to let go and more married to that than a possibility, then yes, it doesn't matter what motivation we give them. In fact, sometimes the more we try to motivate, the more they will cling to the narrative to say, ha, I told you so. And they're right, because they won't allow themselves to let go of what has happened and what they fear would happen to be open to what is possible. Only because that's how I've always been. I've always done it this way. Yeah. And are you happy with the outcome? How's that working for you, as Dr. Phil would say? And so we want to say, what mindset, what's the framework that you need to move beyond where you are now? what might you need to let go of to do differently? We know, yes, you're smart. We know you've got accomplishment. Oh, yes, we're not not kind of dissing that. We're saying, with that intact, what do you need to do differently to grow and be relevant and successful and high performing in the direction that's what's possible, not what was? So the only ones that it really won't work with is just those who are overly attached to their narrative.
And we see this in our space as well, mate. Like I get so many people that come to us that they say, I'm not a finance person. I failed maths. I'm numbers dyslexic. I'm this, I'm that. And as Confucius famously said, he who said he can and he who said he can't are both right.
Yeah.
And I think it's a matter of understanding that you will get the results that you deserve in the world, right?
Yeah.
And that is a direct reflection of how you choose to show up and the actions that you choose to take. And you need to let go of that persona. And when you do, and you take that leap into the unknown, which is incredibly scary, right? That there is only growth on the other side, because you hit the nail on the head. Failure is inevitable. But the idea is that failure is sometimes the most valuable lesson that we can learn about something that allows us to then iterate and get on track for whatever it is that we want, whether it be in business, whether it be in sales, or whether it be in our world of profit and wealth. I'm yet to encounter a client who's embraced that process, who's been open to new perspectives and change, that hasn't been able to benefit as a result. And I'm sure you can attest the same way in the work that you do.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. But I want to add to that is that one of the motivating factors that people mistakenly believe is important when trying to get high achievement is being hard on yourself. Now, there's a difference between having a high standard and being hard on yourself. Being a heavy critic of yourself and beating yourself up as to why you didn't do something right and mentally repeating that you're an idiot or you should be doing better, not kind of encouraging, isn't intelligent. I understand it's part of old school motivation, but if we want ourselves to be able to stretch and try new, we need to be kind. And there's an aspect about kindness before criticism. And that's one of the sayings that I'll have. If you want to motivate, it's kindness first before criticism. And criticism isn't what's wrong, it's like what we could do better.
Yes.
And this is one of the most important motivating tools, is that when we're looking at failure, understand that, yeah, you are going to fail. It's okay. It's part of the journey. And fail fast. The way we fail fast is not by being harsh and negative and pessimistic and victim and blaming, but rather go, yeah, it will happen. In fact, we kind of knew it would happen. That's okay. In fact, one of the things that I will say in my coaching is go out and make some good mistakes. Because when you go out, and I'll talk to them about having value propositions and going out and opening new business opportunities and new connections, you're going to stuff this up. Absolutely okay. Because you won't learn and get better unless you're going to put the energy out there in the first place. So please, please be kind to yourself. Be nice. Be your best friend. Think of how you might want to speak to encourage your children and use that same tone with yourself.
Beautiful, mate. That's sage advice. I think if people can just take that away and implement it, they're going to have a far more enjoyable journey of growth. This is not boot camp. We're not Navy SEALs. We don't all have to be David Goggins, right? We can enjoy the journey. Mate, this has been a phenomenal conversation. I'm sure anybody who's listened and watched this has got a ton of value out of it. And if there's, say, somebody here that is interested in learning more about these skills of getting some support, what's the best way for them to get in contact with you to further the conversation?
I reckon we just go to the website, which is bouncebackfast.com.au. On that front page there's a white paper that I've written called Building Resilient Teams. And it looks at the different levels of resilience you apply to others, you apply to yourself, and how to create high performance and not get stuck in the coping and managing trap and having a glass ceiling. So start with that. Of course, I help salespeople sell more in tough markets, and there's training and there's programs. But Jackson, I'm not everyone's cup of tea. I'm a straight shooter. I work for growth. I push people. I'm kind, but I'm also going to push you and tell you the truth as well. So if you're looking for measurable results in creating high performance in sales, performance and engagement, happy to have that conversation. There are many formats that can take in: self-study, coaching, training, but let's have a conversation and see if we are the right fit for each other. But go to the website first, bouncebackfast.com.au.
Awesome. We'll include those links in the show notes, mate. I really appreciate you making the time to share your wisdom. And guys, just remember, a good idea in theory remains exactly that, just a good idea until you put it into practice. So make sure that you implement what you learned on today's show. Until next time, thanks, Michael. We'll catch you soon.
Fabulous.